There are no words that anyone can express how horrible and senseless this case was and this tragic series of events. My prayers are with you and all of the family members. This tragedy was just that, a tragedy. She was such a kind, loving person, and the world will miss her and her kind words and actions that she took throughout her life. Welcome back, everyone. So today, we're going to be taking a look at a cold case that has recently been solved out of Kansas City, Missouri. What happened to a 16-year-old Fawn Cox has been a mystery for more than 30 years, but now the case has finally been solved. However, the answers to this case are still a tragedy to the family. Advanced DNA testing revealed the rapist and murderer of Fawn Cox was Fawn Cox's own cousin, Donald Cox Jr. Unfortunately, he died years ago from an overdose, not giving the family a complete closure on what happened or why it happened. "It's a relief there is closure," said Felicia Cox, Fawn's sister. This is the first case solved by the Kansas City Police Department using advanced genealogical lookup and techniques like those that were used to solve the Golden State Killer case. On July 26, 1989, Fawn Cox was murdered in her bedroom. She was raped, strangled, and left completely unclothed. Her mother and little sister found her that morning when her alarm clock went off. "I went to shake her. Come on, get up. Your alarm clock's been going off for a while now." But she had been gone for a while at that point, Fawn Cox's sister Felicia Cox remembers. Fawn Cox worked at World of Fun until 11 p.m. the previous night, then came home and went straight to bed, knowing she had to get up early for the next morning. World of Fun Amusement Park is a 235-acre amusement park that opened in 1973 and is currently still open. Fawn Cox worked there for several years. She worked as a ride attendant. She worked in concession sales, but her most joyful job was working in what was then called Little Tykes Land. Felicia Cox says no one in her family heard anything that night because of air conditioning units that were running. But Felicia Cox remembers the family dog being agitated and barking several times and fussing. But they brushed it off because the dog was pregnant at the time and had been uncomfortable for quite a few days prior. To pick that home and that window to come in undetected and leave undetected made sense. The suspect knew Fawn, said KCPD Sergeant Ben Caldwell. Fawn Cox's family fought for years for advanced DNA testing, any kind of testing on this case at all. They held fundraisers, bake sales, did yard sales, car washes, anything to raise the money. They held fundraisers and spoke out for the need for advanced testing, even offered to pay for all the testing themselves. The Kansas City Police Department's answers came simply, you don't have enough. The money is not the issue. It's being in line to be tested and then coming up with the thousands and thousands of dollars in order to do the actual testing. The Kansas City Police Department put forth the idea that the KCPD would reach out to the FBI and ask the FBI if they would be willing to pay for this, because the Kansas City Police Department nor the family had enough money to pay for the genealogical lookup. The average cost for a genealogical lookup in DNA testing, advanced DNA testing, is upwards of $16,000. Once we reached out to the FBI to ask for them to pay for it, the FBI came back quickly. Yes, we will pay for it. The family says what happened to Fawn Cox simply haunted them, and the lack of answers were painful. We never could figure out who could have known that the one window in the home that was unlocked was a way to get in, and who would want to hurt or harm or do anything to our family, let alone who would want to hurt Fawn Cox. The murder. Donald Cox Jr., described by his friends and family as a hard, partying, down-to-earth redneck. He would do anything for his friends and family. He drifted from job to job because of substance abuse and anger issues, where he just couldn't seem to follow the simplest rules. But it wasn't that he didn't try. He always tried. Not being a good student, but not being a poor student. He once went on to take trade school classes, but failed out because of attendance issues. It wasn't until the last 3 years of his life that Donald Cox Jr. started using drugs. He quickly became addicted to opiates, which would eventually take his life. He died of an overdose several years ago. Donald Cox Jr. was remembered fondly by his friends and family, and remembered by the well over 40 guests who attended his funeral services when he passed. Donald Cox Jr., to this day, the family has no idea why he would have done anything like this. Simply baffled. In his entire history of criminal convictions, Donald Cox Jr. never had a single violent offense on his record. His brushes with the law consisted of minor theft, selling of stolen goods, drug possession, public intoxication, a DUI, and bounced checks. No violent offenses at all. And as far as the family and friends can remember, they've never seen him violently act out towards a friend or family member. His violent issues at work mainly had to deal with authority. He didn't like people telling him what to do. But now, over 30 years later, we finally know what happened to Fawn. It doesn't make it any easier for the family to move on now, knowing that it was a close family member who actually killed Fawn. But yet, they know now that the case has been closed. They finally have the answers of what happened and who did it. Rest in peace, Fawn. Rest in peace. And thank you for joining me today on Cold Case number 25.